You know that feeling? You've spent, gosh, maybe years with English books, grammar apps, maybe you even ace the quizzes.
Uh,
But then the moment comes, you need to actually speak English. And silence, it's like your brain just freezes up. You feel completely stuck, kind
yeah,
of just going round and round, learning stuff, but not really, using it.
it's incredibly
Yeah.
common. So much focus goes on to, well, the input part,
Yeah.
learning the rules,
Right.
memorizing words.
Right.
And the assumption is that speaking, the output, will just sort of happen automatically.
Right.
But it doesn't quite work like that for most people.
Exactly. And that's what we're really digging into today. It's not about throwing out the grammar books. Not at all.
No, definitely not.
But it's about shifting focus. Our mission, really, is to give you some practical, genuinely useful strategies, things you can use to start speaking English with more confidence, maybe even, believe it or not, starting today.
And you've likely put in so much work,
Yeah.
understanding complex grammar, building that vocabulary list.
Yeah.
The frustration kicks in when you're like face to face or on a call, and all that knowledge feels locked away. You can't quite grab it in real time.
That gap. So yeah, think of this deep dive as your bridge across that gap. We've been looking at some really interesting stuff, specifically from an Effortless English Zone episode on YouTube, number 11, with Jason and
I
Julia.
had some great points.
They really did. Powerful ideas about why all that studying doesn't just magically turn into speaking. So, okay, let's unpack that. Why? Why does studying sometimes feel so separate from talking?
Well, it's kind of about how our brain learns different types of skills.
Hmm.
Think about learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
You can read books about balance, watch videos of cyclists, understand the physics perfectly. But does that mean you can suddenly just hop on and ride?
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. You'd probably fall right over.
Exactly. You have to actually get on the bike,
Yeah.
feel the wobble, practice pedaling, steering. It's a physical, active skill.
That's a really good analogy. It's knowing about versus knowing how. Like learning to swim from a book versus actually jumping in the pool.
Precisely. You don't learn until you get wet,
Yeah.
right? And I think many learners fall into this belief that if I just study one more grammar rule or learn 50 more words, then I'll be ready to speak.
Yeah. Waiting for that magic moment.
But fluency isn't built just by adding more information to your mental database. It's about making the retrieval of that information fast, automatic. It's about connecting the words and rules smoothly when you talk.
Uh-huh.
You can know thousands of words, but if you haven't practiced actually using them in sentences out loud,
Huh.
that spontaneous flow just won't be there.
It makes me think of like learning a musical instrument. Imagine someone studies music theory nonstop, knows all the scales, the chords,
Right.
but they hardly ever actually play the instrument. Compare
Mhm.
them to someone else who just picks up a guitar every day, messes around, learns simple songs, maybe sounds a bit rough at first.
Who gets better faster?
The player, for sure,
Yeah.
every time.
It's the same principle. The act of speaking trains your mouth, your ears, your brain's pathways for language production. It's the doing that builds the skill. You don't wait to be ready. Speaking is what makes you ready.
Okay, so for anyone listening who's thinking, yes, that's me, years of study, but I clam up when I try to speak, the big takeaway here is it's not about your effort being wasted, not at all. It just means it's time to shift some of that energy, move it towards active practice. And this is key, right? Making mistakes is okay. It's actually necessary.
It's absolutely essential, which leads us right into the next big thing.
Yeah.
Why are we so afraid to speak? That fear, it holds so many people back.
Oh, definitely. It feels enormous, that fear. You worry about, I don't know, saying words wrong, sounding silly, or messing up the grammar so badly that nobody understands you, or just, being judged or laughed at. It feels really vulnerable.
And those feelings are completely valid. It is vulnerable putting yourself out there in the language you're still learning. But here's the thing. Mistakes are not just normal. They are unavoidable. They're part of learning any complex skill.
True.
Even native speakers mess up sometimes. We stumble over words, use slightly awkward phrasing. It happens.
That's a good point. And this idea that you need perfect English before you even start speaking,
Yeah.
it's just a total myth, isn't it?
It's a huge barrier. Like
Yeah.
Jason and Julie mentioned, the goal is communication, connection. If you get your message across, even with a few wobbles, that's a success.
Yeah, that's a win.
And try this little mental exercise. Think about when you've heard someone trying to speak your native language, and they're clearly not fluent yet.
Okay.
What's your reaction? Are you zooming in on every little grammar mistake?
Yeah.
Or are you usually just impressed they're making the effort, and you focus on understanding them?
Yeah, mostly I'm just thinking, wow, good for them for trying. I focus on the message, definitely. The effort is what I notice.
Exactly. And that's most likely how people will react to your efforts in English. So, step one is accepting mistakes are okay. They're proof you're trying, you're learning. Try to change that inner voice from, oh no, what if I mess up, to something like, okay, speaking now, let's see what I learn, mistakes and all.
I like that reframe. It feels much more positive. So, okay, practically, how do we start doing this? How do we chip away at that fear?
Well, one really effective way is to start super small, like really small sentences. You don't need to debate philosophy on day one,
Right.
just simple everyday stuff. And another thing, which might feel weird at first, is talking to yourself in English.
Talking to myself. Okay, how does that help with, actual conversations later?
It gives you a zero pressure zone to practice. No judgment, just you and the language. You can just narrate what you're doing,
Mm.
like when you're making coffee.
Yeah.
You could say out loud, okay, I'm getting the mug, now I'm pouring the water, it's hot, adding coffee, it smells nice, things like that.
Ah, I see. It's like a rehearsal space where you can just play around with words without worrying.
Exactly. Get comfortable forming sentences, hearing your own voice speaking English. You could also practice with friends who are also learning that shared experience can lower the pressure.
That makes sense.
Speaking in front of a mirror can actually help too. Makes you more aware of pronunciation.
Hmm.
And then there's that technique called shadowing.
Shadowing, right. Can you explain that a bit more, how it works?
Sure. Shadowing is basically listening to a native speaker, could be a podcast clip, a bit from a movie, YouTube,
Oh.
and you repeat what they say, almost exactly as they say it, maybe just a split second behind them. You try to copy their rhythm, their intonation, the sounds.
So you're not focused on creating the sentence, just mimicking it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It helps you get the feel and flow of spoken English
Yeah.
without the mental load of constructing the thoughts yourself. It's like building muscle memory for your mouth.
Okay, those are some really concrete things people can try. So let's talk about this idea of speaking from day one. That sounds ambitious, maybe, for someone who feels like they know hardly any English.
It's a big mental block for sure. This feeling that you need to hoard knowledge until you have enough before you're allowed to speak.
Yeah.
But as Jason and Julia stressed, speaking really should start immediately. Use whatever you do know, however limited you think it is.
Okay, but how? If all you know is hello and thank you, how do you have a conversation?
You start there. And you use the other words you know. Remember talking to yourself, even just labeling things. Window, book, my phone, the sky is gray today. That is speaking. You're activating what you've learned.
So it's about making active use of even the smallest bits of knowledge you have.
Exactly. And shadowing fits in here too. Shadow sort simple phrases first. Get your mouth used to making English sounds right away.
Okay. And what about actually trying to talk to someone, even as a beginner?
Aim for clarity, not complexity. Use simple English. Forget fancy sentences for now. Jason and Julia had that great example, right? Instead of trying to say, I wish to convey my profound appreciation for this truly exquisite culinary experience.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Just say, thank you, the food is good, or even just, thank you for the food. Simple, clear, effective communication.
Keep it simple. Got it.
Absolutely. And then the next big step is finding ways to talk with real people as soon as you feel even a tiny bit ready. This doesn't have to be scary.
Like what?
Maybe joining an online group for learners, finding a language partner for just a 5-minute chat, even trying out a few basic phrases if you're, say, in a tourist area or interacting online.
So gradual steps into real interaction.
Yes. Moving from solo practice to actually communicating. And here's a challenge for everyone listening today.
Yeah.
After you finish listening, say one sentence in English out loud.
Yeah.
Just one. Even to the wall. That's your starting point.
I like that. A concrete first step. It makes speaking feel less daunting.
Okay, so we've talked about getting started. How do we keep it going? How does speaking become a regular habit?
Consistency. That's the magic word for progress. It's much, much better to practice speaking for, say, 10 minutes every single day than to do a 2-hour session once a week.
Really? Even just 10 minutes?
Absolutely. Those short, regular bursts build momentum and reinforce the learning much more effectively. Think of it like exercise a little bit every day is better for building strength than one huge workout followed by nothing.
Okay, 10 minutes feels doable for most people.
It really is. And remember, it doesn't always have to be with a native speaker. Keep talking to yourself. Set a timer, 5 or 10 minutes, describe your room, talk about your plans for the day, anything. And those online groups or language partners we mentioned, perfect for daily check-ins.
You mentioned apps earlier. Could you give some examples again? Where can people find these partners? Yeah, there are some great apps specifically for this. Tandem and HelloTalk are really popular. You can also find English learning groups on Facebook, things like that.
Yeah.
The great thing is you're having real conversations, maybe about shared interests. It's much more engaging and honestly more effective than just drilling flashcards.
It feels more alive, I guess, more dynamic.
It is. And here's another tip. Voice messages. If a live call feels too stressful at first, try exchanging short voice messages with a language partner or a friend.
Oh, that's smart. Less pressure.
Exactly. You get to practice speaking, but you have a moment to think first. It's a nice stepping stone. And finally, set tiny goals, like today I will say 5 sentences in English out loud, or I'll have a 2-minute chat with my language partner. Make it a non-negotiable part of your day.
So consistent short practice beats infrequent marathon sessions.
Yeah.
No, actually finding those partners.
Mhm.
Sometimes that feels like the hardest part. Where do people look?
It can feel like a hurdle, yeah.
Yeah.
But there are so many options now. Like we said, start close to home. Any friends, family, coworkers who speak English or are learning too, even if they aren't fluent, practicing basic chats with them is great for confidence. It's usually a safe space.
Lower stakes, yeah. Less intimidating.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Then those language exchange apps we keep mentioning, HelloTalk, Tandem, Speaky is another one.
Okay.
They connect you with native speakers learning your language or other English learners worldwide. You can text, send voice messages, do video calls. Lots of options.
It really opens up the possibilities globally.
It does. And don't forget online communities. Search Facebook for English-speaking practice groups. Look on Reddit, maybe Discord servers for language learners. Yeah. People there are often actively looking for partners.
Okay.
And if you prefer something more structured, you could look for online speaking clubs. Platforms like Meetup sometimes have them, or sites like italki offer conversation practice with tutors. Even local language schools might have conversation groups.
So from casual chats to more formal practice, there's something for everyone.
Pretty much. The key thing is, don't just wait for someone to find you. Be proactive. Send messages. Introduce yourself. Say you'd like to practice speaking. Ask questions. Most people in these spaces want to practice, so take that first step.
Good advice. Be brave. Reach out. Okay, another thing that trips people up is translation. That constant translating in your head before you speak. Why is that such a problem?
The mental translation trap. It really slows you down. Think about it. You have a thought in your native language. Then you search for the English words, try to fit them into English grammar rules. Then you finally speak. It adds these extra steps that kill the spontaneity of conversation.
And sometimes the translation just doesn't work, right? Words don't match up perfectly.
Exactly. Idioms rarely translate directly. Sentence structures differ. So the English you produce can end up sounding, well, a bit unnatural or awkward, sometimes just plain wrong.
It disrupts the flow completely.
It really does. That's why learning to think directly in English is so important for fluency, cutting out that middleman, the translation step.
Okay, but how? How do you stop translating? It feels automatic for so many learners.
It takes conscious effort, definitely. Yeah. Start small again. Simple, concrete things. See a chair. Think chair directly. Don't think your word for chair first, then translate. Just chair.
So build direct links between objects and English words.
Yes, then expand it. Describe your surroundings internally at first, then maybe out loud. It's raining. That car is red. I need to buy milk. Simple thoughts, directly in English. Another really useful tool, use an English-only dictionary. When you look up a new word, don't just find the translation. Read the English definition. Look at the English example sentences. Immerse yourself in understanding the word through English.
So you're forcing your brain to operate within English as much as possible.
Exactly. And as Jason and Julia pointed out, speaking your thoughts out loud in English, even when you're alone, is incredibly powerful. It makes your brain practice forming those English sentences directly without the translation safety net.
It sounds like it really requires deliberate, consistent effort to rewire that thinking process.
It does. But starting small, being consistent, over time, thinking in English becomes more natural, less effortful, more automatic.
Okay. We keep circling back to this, but it's clearly huge. Mistakes, that fear of making them, let's really tackle that head on. It just seems to stop people in their tracks.
It's probably the single biggest psychological barrier. That desire for perfection, the fear of sounding stupid, it makes people clam up. They avoid speaking altogether, which means they don't get the practice they need.
Vicious cycle.
Totally. But the fundamental mindset shift needed is this. Mistakes are not failures. They are evidence of learning. They're data points showing you where you need to adjust. Nobody learns a language without making tons of them.
Yeah, we native speakers make mistakes all the time, too. We forget words, use awkward phrasing.
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
So learners need to give themselves permission to be imperfect. Try, as Jason and Julia suggested, to actively change how you react internally when you make a mistake. Instead of, I'm so bad at this, try thinking, okay, that wasn't quite right. Noted. What's the correct way?
Turning it into curiosity instead of self-criticism.
Exactly. A learning opportunity. And be open to feedback. If someone gently corrects you, try to see it as helpful, not as criticism. They're offering you a chance to improve. The more you practice, the more you speak. Despite the fear of mistakes, the more your confidence grows. And ironically, the fewer mistakes you'll eventually make.
This is a positive feedback loop. If you can just push through that initial fear. Practice leads to mistakes, yes, but mistakes lead to learning. Learning builds confidence. Confidence leads to more practice.
Precisely. You get better by doing it imperfectly at first. Embrace the messiness of learning.
This has been incredibly insightful. If we were to boil it all down, what's the absolute core message you want people listening to take away and maybe start acting on, like right now?
Okay. The main things are, stop only studying passively. Make speaking your priority right from the beginning. Find ways to talk to yourself, to partners online, anywhere. Train your brain to think in English step by step. And crucially, please, embrace mistakes. They're not bad. They're essential. You don't need to be perfect to start speaking. Speaking is how you get better.
It's about the action, the doing.
It really is. So take one small action today. Maybe download one of those language apps we mentioned. Just browse it. Or spend literally 2 minutes trying to think only in English about what you see out the window. And definitely say one sentence in English out loud today. Break the ice with yourself. Start building that speaking habit.
Fantastic summary, really practical.
And truly, we believe you can do this. Anyone listening, keep practicing, stay positive, and try to enjoy the process. Learning to communicate in a new language is an amazing thing.
Absolutely. And to you listening, really think about that. What's the one tiny concrete thing you can do right now or just after this to put this into practice? Find an app. Think one thought in English. Say one sentence. Just do that one small thing. Take that first step. You can absolutely do this.